Button. Good morning, Hacksters. It is Tuesday, my favorite day of the week. Actually, it may not be morning where you are. In fact, we had a slight time zone snafu, so we're here at 11 Pacific. I'm really excited. We're going to talk to Lukas Hartmann, who is here talking to us about the MNT Reform, a much more personal laptop developed by your company, MNT Research. Is that right?
Correct. Hi, everyone. Hi,
Yay!
Alex.
How are you, Lucas?
I'm quite okay. Yeah, I was sick on vacation. That's always nice.
Oh, no.
but I kind of got over it on time to get back to work. So here I
Hey,
am.
great.
Just,
But you are working on some really cool stuff, so let's dig into your laptop. Can you tell us why the MNT Reform is called a much more personal laptop?
yeah. So the idea is that So back in the 80s, when I got my first computers as a kid, I felt like that those computers were more personal than what you can get now, especially if you buy a laptop or a phone, if you consider that a computer. In that they had a book where it said you can program this computer in BASIC, you turn it on and it goes to a basic prompt, and for example the Commodore 64, ZX Spectrum, and so on. Those kind of home computers, they were meant to tinker with them, and they had an expansion port, and they had schematics and stuff. So it was from the get-go something that you could modify and learn from about computers and customize. And kind of the modular personal computer was also still like that. But for me, the whole computer stuff got kind of frustrating with, later I became an Apple MacBook user and an iPhone user. And there was kind of this feeling that, okay, after a while, you have to, you can't get any more operating system updates for them. You need to buy the next model and the next model and so on. That's fine, but I felt like I was further and further removed from the actual computer. And after Snow Leopard, Apple was going more and more in the direction of the thing is an appliance, and it's more like iOS, more like a mobile operating system, where all apps go through centralized app store and so on. And to develop on the machine, you had to install, you have to pay for developer program.
Yeah.
Your apps have to be certified and stuff. So it became more and more distanced from the computer as a tool, as a development tool, and as a something that you can make your own. Also, I think modern versions of Mac, you need to and also in Windows, you need to have a Apple account or a Microsoft account that's tied to the machine. And yeah, I could go on forever, but the kind of trend of hardware development, personal computer development, goes against your right to repair and curiosity, and you can't get official schematics for those devices. I mean, you can find them somewhere maybe, but sure as
funnily enough, iFixit has been collaborating with some hardware companies to produce repair tutorials, but at the same, and Apple's come out with a kit, but at the same time, they are getting very, a lot of them are gluing in the batteries and very miniaturized components that you can't really replace yourself.
Yeah, so I had, after unsuccessfully running, kind of semi-successfully running Linux on a MacBook that was, coming of age, I had like a lot of driver problems with Wi-Fi and stuff, and it was kind of it was fast, but also very problematic in terms of hardware support. Like some stuff just didn't work, and I couldn't figure out why, And then I had this idea, like, okay, what if we would build a laptop from the ground up for, like, in the spirit of free operating systems and free and open source software, and we do it totally differently, and we like turn everything upside down. Yeah, so it runs open source by default. It's okay if it's like thick,
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be like super thin, because you should be able to like poke around in there, and you should be able to take it apart easily. You shouldn't need special tools and widgets to open it and so on. And there can be room for expansion. And we don't we don't want to create new secrets. So we are not about like everything's patented and secret and nobody can copy it, but we are doing the complete opposite, like open up as much as we can, and you're encouraged to copy it, and you're encouraged to like clone it and change it and make your own parts for it and so on. So
yes. Oh man,
that's what it's all about.
there's so much to dig into here. So first up, you have this amazing manual, taking off of what we were just talking about, with not being able to repair these things. Yes, you've got it right there. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and this has, of course, schematics in there.
Yes.
And also teaches, it shows you all the parts and so on, how they go together, and part numbers of everything, and shows you a bit, like, you can learn about Linux in there.
Yeah, it even teaches you some stuff about learning Linux. That's incredible. We met Brendan from the community, who I think worked a bit on the manual, and he showed us. It's just mind-blowing, everything that you have in there. It reminds me absolutely of old-timey, sorry. Like, the 80s and 90s, and even before, when you would have actual diagrams of these things. And you have your manual online also, so people can go and you can get a version to print out, you can get the schematics, you can get everything. Here's a schematic that's just like linked from the website, and then all the different bills of materials and things and all that good stuff. You've got a GitLab where people can look at all the extra information in here, and that's not just for this laptop. There's also other stuff that we'll talk about later. But there's so much to cover. But this manual is really, it's just a work of art. I think it's beautiful, and I love that you teach people about Linux as well. But I should let you talk about it. What's your favorite thing about the manual?
Okay, so different things. Like, I'm pretty happy with the manual, and I really like the cover art by 100 Rabbits.
By 100 Rabbits, they're really cool.
Yeah, so also very interesting couple and design team who live on a boat, traveling the world, and so we met almost all the goals that we wanted for the handbook. So I mean, it can never be complete, right? You could always go in more detail, but I like also the renders of I think we found a good art style with Paul, and
you have a really pretty picture on your website as well, an exploded diagram of the laptop, speaking of such things.
Yeah, that's also by Paul. So we worked with with the CAD files, right? So so we kind of try to use the CAD files as art assets, and I think that worked out nicely.
That's really cool.
Because everything is kind of about construction and deconstruction and playing with that.
But at the same time, so there's this danger when you have things like very DIY hardware. Sometimes 3D printers and things are notorious for like becoming a project itself. Like you get stuck sort of optimizing the thing and making it work, and you don't actually get to use it. So we have this question from David. Hey, David, who says, Lucas, do you daily use the Reform? Are there any tasks you have to switch to something else for? So,
Oh, yeah, sure. I can talk about that. So. Yeah, I can maybe. This is a good cue to put this here. Let's see if that works out. Yeah, a little stand here and a mouse. So that's a display of actual Reform laptop. So just to give you a feeling for, I mean, we are aware that the CPU on this thing is extremely limited and simple, right? It's like a quad-core A53. It's like a super simple 64-bit core by ARM, energy efficient core. But in combination with the GPU, and it really depends on the software that you use, how snappy or not the actual experience will be. It varies a lot from software to software. For example, this is Chromium, and you can see it like scrolls nicely and stuff. And yeah, you have kind of smooth animations and so on. By the way, this is like, we can talk about this later, maybe Jacqueline's Reform clone.
I see some Osh Park purple and also a handsome cat.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I think it's actually Osh Park, yeah, the board. So, but if I would open Firefox now, it would be considerably slower. Because like really complicated technical details why that is. Because on this platform, Firefox cannot use the hardware acceleration, but Chromium can. So that's a bit of a problem, right? But yeah, you have to pick your tools so that they kind of match the hardware. That's maybe unusual on ARM, but it's still like a thing on ARM. So yeah, this is, for example, LibreOffice Calc here. You can do your spreadsheets. Yeah, I think it's like reasonable Office machine. Inkscape, for example. This is a bit complicated to do it like this.
I'm really impressed that you're doing this both mirrored and backwards.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
adjusting. Yeah, but it kind of works. Yeah, so yeah, I guess it's fine. So yeah, and gaming. So here's Mind Test. Does it still work? Yeah. So we did a lot of testing, GPU testing with Mind Test, and like I don't know, walk with WASD. So I'm playing with one hand, so I can't rotate and walk at the same time. Yeah, but you see it works like it's like decent, you know. I don't know what's the FPS right now. 43.
Nice.
So yeah, just a quick demo. You can also watch movies on it, which I won't show, of course, for copyright reasons. So what do I do with it? So I use it almost every day. I don't have another laptop that I use. So it's like my only laptop right now. But I do use a PC with Intel i9 as my working computer in the office for certain things where I just need like kind of the maximum performance I can get. So, for example, when I'm designing hardware, I still don't do it on the Reform. I could do that, but it would slow me down a bit. So what I do on the Reform is email, for example, web browsing, shopping, like at home on the sofa. And I also made a bit of music on it with Ardour. Yeah, I chat on it, use it like for like just communication.
You
And
mentioned
testing,
Oh, sorry, go on. Please.
and like I'm testing a lot of software on it, like just compiling applications to see if they work or not. There's a lot of these little projects going on with Wayland based desktops, and there's always new tools popping up, and it's just interesting to check them out.
Cool. You mentioned in here that on the crowd supply page, which is linked below, along with a bunch of other things that you can check out, you talk a little bit about the CPU in here and why you made the decision that you did, but also, since it's a modular computer, you're also working on other CPU blocks that people can drop in, and of course you can upgrade it later.
Yes. So so the laptop is like, as you can see, it has a transparent bottom, and
I'm told that's very durable. I was a little skeptical, but apparently, no one's really had problems with it.
It's really, and I carry this around every day, back and forth from the office to my backpack, and this plate looks like new somehow. I don't know. It's like really scratch resistant.
And you have some gorgeous sleeves for these things as well to protect it.
Oh yeah, I can show some unreleased ones.
Ooh.
So yeah, so there's an upcoming one. So there's like a white one. And there's a so yeah, so these will be released later.
I need that to match my
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, besides the sweet merch and the cool bag, which it is amazing that you can see through it and see everything that's inside. I want to talk about so many different things, but speaking about the CPUs, I think you had some Raspberry Pi stuff to show off.
Yeah, so this is a motherboard. This is the Reform motherboard, but you can see there's something different here. So here there's like Raspberry Pi compute module. Instead of the normal IMX8M that goes in this slot here, that looks like a memory slot, but that's actually the CPU slot. So here, the whole thing is meant to be like upgraded, that you can have. So the motherboard is mainly like a power charger and I/O interface board, So
I see SD card, Ethernet, all these things that my MacBook does not have because it's all about being thin. But you've got USB-A ports and Ethernet and stuff like that. Really cool.
Yeah, and then we have some unreleased CPU modules. For example, this is completely open hardware module made by RBZ. So you can actually download the source files for this design, and it has a NXP Layerscape LS1028A processor and up to 16 gigabytes of memory on this module. It was a long time in development actually because it was really tricky to do. But RBZ have now just a few weeks ago booted Linux for the first time on it. So there's some progress there. And this is funded by NLNet, by the way. So thanks, NLNet. And another thing I have to finish soon, also funded by NLNet, is this. I don't know if you can see that. So that's a Kintex 7 FPGA. You can. So that's basically a wild card where you can run different computer designs on this FPGA, like different RISC-V processors from with the Litex ecosystem, or you could run any kind of retro machines on it, and it's very interesting for experimentation with software-defined hardware.
That's super cool. So there is also another aspect to this. So on the crowd supply page, you mentioned that you developed it for usage, but also for teaching and things like that, and that's partly why you have the clear bottom. The clear bottom, one of the really distinctive things that you'll see on the bottom of this laptop, which I took in this kind of crappy photo when I met Brendan, is obviously this bank of 18650 batteries. Can you tell us about these batteries and what's kind of special about them?
Oh, yeah. So this grew out of a very early user feedback comment, I think, like in the beginning of the project, very, very beginning, when someone suggested, why don't you use lithium iron phosphate batteries, LiFePO4, so like this. And I hadn't heard about them, but I immediately found them very interesting because they have some different characteristics from the usual lithium-ion cells that are used everywhere. In that, so they're safer. So lithium-ion cobalt batteries have often the problem of thermal runaway. So you need to watch their temperature carefully because they might like overheat, and then there's some kind of reaction that goes on and on, and they can catch fire.
Suboptimal.
Yeah, so we know those stories from like some kind of phone or tablet that caught fire on a plane, and then all kind of new regulations. Yeah. So yeah, I was very concerned about, because we sell this as a kit, a DIY kit, and I was very concerned about the safety of it. And for example, if someone buys it like for their child or something, I just didn't want anyone to get injured building this laptop. And moreover, these are environmentally more interesting because they don't have the cobalt in them, which is a conflict mineral. And they also have more charge cycles, so they don't degrade as quickly. And the only downside is that they have that they have lower energy density. So you get a little less runtime out of them at the same size. Yeah. And we decided to go with this form factor. You can also go get like the standard lithium-ion batteries in this size, but it's a standard size, and we wanted that people would be able to just buy the cells themselves if they needed new ones in the market. I mean, now the situation is, of course, a bit complicated now because shortages everywhere and stuff is not as abundant as everybody expected it to be. But in general, you can you can get your batteries replaced. So I'm also sometimes trying out new vendors and stuff. So you see, I have different like black and gold ones that I got from. I was just shopping on AliExpress, for different lithium iron phosphate batteries. They have a lot of different ones.
I'm not surprised.
And these are like from a German company distributor called Aramid, and they have 2,000 milliamp hours instead of the usual 1,800. So there's also some developments going on. Like some people managed to get more capacity out of these. So there's like choice there.
That's really cool. Another thing that you mentioned on your website is that you can mail any of the parts back to MNT Research and you'll recycle them for people, which I think is another extra wonderful way that you're supporting the environment by doing that. Obviously, depending on where you live in the world, like it costs carbon to ship things as well, but like when you're able to sort of weigh it against what kind of e-waste disposal you have at your disposal.
There's also some change in legislation. So I think till July, like this is a new thing. So we actually have to now by law come up with a scheme like this
Oh, cool.
in Germany. So where we have to have a concept, a registered concept of taking back e-waste, as an option. So there's also like legislation is changing here.
That's really cool. Before we get too far away from the other thing about all the different ports and stuff that you have available, it's really cool that you have things like USB-A and Ethernet, and people can add, they could design their own modules to add extra ports and stuff, and you can swap out those things as well as the side plates covering them and everything. But also, it's remarkable what you don't include. It doesn't ship with a camera or mic. Is that true?
That's true. Yeah, so this version does not have a microphone or camera built in, which was on the one side a simplification, but on the other hand, I've seen many times that people cover up their laptop cameras with tape, or there's like little mechanical
one of these
hatches.
little slidey things.
Exactly. So that came from kind of the idea that if you need a camera, we are also working on a camera, by the way. So if you need a camera, you should it's an option that you can.
I saw that it's you've got your own keyboard already, and there's a whole section where people might find a camera in the future.
Yes.
Tell us about the keyboard, by the way. Most laptops, a lot of people hate the ones that Apple has on their laptops because they're vaguely, generally horrible. Tell us about the keyboard on yours.
Yeah, so I'm aware there are some gamer laptops with mechanical keys, but it's kind of a rare thing for a laptop to have mechanical keys. But we thought okay, the laptop has room enough to put real key switches in there. So, and then this is the standalone keyboard. Also, maybe I should connect it. Go backlight. So let's make the backlight a bit brighter. So that's the same keyboard PCB that's in the laptop, and also the little OLED here. And you can see it's real switches, Kyle Chock, and so that's really nice to type on because nice key travel, and then we are we also offer now the option to use clicky keys white. They're called whites. So you can make a lot of noise while typing as well.
It makes it go faster.
And so we decided to at some point to spin off the keyboard of the laptop as a separate standalone thing.
And there's an interesting spacebar situation there, isn't there?
Oh yeah. So the whole thing is a bit different than a usual keyboard. So there's two differences here that are related to each other. This version of the keyboard has only two different key shapes. So a so-called 1U and a 1.5U. There's no other sizes on here. If you look at a regular keyboard, you will have a lot of different keycap shapes, and that means you also don't have a long space bar. So for a lot of people, that's cool. You would just put your one thumb here and the other thumb there, and that's fine, right? So you have these two separate spaces. You can also, here are the Alt and Alt-GR, but you can remap them to that these are also spaces if you need more of them here. But the other difference is that the stagger is slightly different. So this is on some old Commodore keyboards. So the Z and the W, they are exactly aligned. And on
Oh, you've got
And
that in
on
English mode.
it's like a
Isn't-
US
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
Yeah, I use only US layouts myself, because
Ah.
it's the stuff is in a more logical place for programming.
Ah.
Yeah, all the all the brackets and stuff are in a bit strange places on German keyboard.
Interesting.
Anyway, yeah, so these rows have a slightly different stagger, and that might be like for some people it needs a bit of getting used to. Some people also don't notice this at all. So I'm also working on a layout now. So yeah, and the explanation for this was also like how simple can we make it, and what keycaps are available. Like these low-profile chalk keys where we started, there weren't a lot of key shapes for them, and we kind of last-minute switched to this small team called FK Caps that made these keycaps for us, and we with some others financed the first molds for the so-called glow version of these keycaps, which is like so they're translucent ABS, but they have a PU coat, like a black coat.
Oh, cool.
And we can hear like with a it's not in the image, but behind me there's a laser engraver, laser cutter, and so we actually engrave the legends on this keyboard, on all of these keyboards here.
Cool. So if someone
yeah.
orders one from you, they'll have their keys actually engraved by you and your team.
Yep.
That's so cool. There's one other. Please go on.
Yeah, so it just means that there's a lot of room for customization in the future. We can make new layouts easily and so on. Yeah, but we are now working also on a version where that has 2 more key shapes, and then we will have a traditional stagger, and we will replace these two by a 2U, like a little bit larger cap. So because there are some people who always hit the spacebar in the middle, and they are sad about this. So we will have one more alternative later.
Before we move on, we have a couple of questions I'd love to get to from the comments here. We'll totally get to those. But there's one extra cool little feature of both the laptop and the keyboard, which is that little OLED screen that you pointed out very briefly. Could you tell us a little more about that? And that's mentioned on Anna's website, or Anna, who you worked with on designing this. The little OLED screen. I mean, I'm trying to find it. Sorry, in my tabs.
Oh yeah, but it's cool. It's a good picture.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like a render, right? But it's a
photo.
No.
Sorry for the noises. Oh my.
I don't hear any.
Okay, good. So yeah, what's the deal with this OLED screen? This shows some extra information about the computer and some extra options, is that right? It's a very unique feature of the laptop. So
yeah, I can explain the motivation behind it. So let's say, yeah, here's the laptop, and I can now just turn it off. So what I just did is I just hard turn it off. You shouldn't actually do that, maybe if your data is important. Don't try this at home. But so the little display is, and so the motherboard and the keyboard, together they are like a tiny computer that is independent from like the system running here, the IMX or Raspberry Pi or whatever you have there, or your operating system is completely independent. So with this little display, you can, like, even if the computer is off, you can turn that on, and then, yes, probably you won't really be able to see that, but you have a little menu system here, and you can see like the battery status, and you can turn it on and off. Yeah, very good, very nice.
I was fascinated by this thing when I saw it. Here's the little exit menu, power on, power off, and you got some special little key on the keyboard to pull this up. It's so cool.
Yeah. So the idea is that you have direct access to the power management without needing operating system support for it. Yeah. So you can also check this when you don't have an operating system installed, or it's still installing, or it has some kind of weird, it doesn't work right. You can still do stuff there, and the operating system can also not prevent you to turn the computer off. So imagine you're being raided and you quickly need to shut your computer down. You can do that very quickly by pressing circle and 0. And that's kind of like, it's almost like a mechanical switch where you can just say, okay, power off. And that's not always possible on laptops, because this whole shutdown stuff is like a process that you can start maybe with a button, yeah, but it's not like a hard power off like this one. Yeah, so that's the background of that. And of course, you can customize that. It's open source firmware. It's just some C files, and you can put your own stuff. You could add a Tetris or Snake game in there if you want.
We have a question. Any news about the Pocket Reform? I hadn't heard of this. This is the first that I'm actually.
Yeah, this is the only thing that I don't have any props prepared right now.
Is it similar to the Pocket Chip?
No. The Pocket Chip is. It's kind of related, because they're both like little computers, pocket-sized computers. So the Pocket Reform is like a 7-inch version of Reform. Yeah. So it grew a bit bigger. Like, it was originally like around 5.5 inch, but then so basically inspired by Psion devices from the 90s. But we realized that typing on a 5.5 inch keyboard is not really nice. And so we kind of figured out with testing that 7 inches is a good, like, kind of the minimal size that you need if you don't want to have a really cramped, like, typing setup. So we are making the smallest laptop in our vision that you can still comfortably type on with mechanical keys.
Lots of excitement about that.
Yeah, they're just closer together than on a regular keyboard, and a bit less of them.
There's so much excitement around the keyboard. There's people asking questions about the trackball and the trackpad. You can use a trackball or a trackpad, but yeah. What was your thinking with going with a trackball for default?
Actually, you can select exactly the one you want. So the trackball is not really a default, but it's so you can also choose both. If you order, you can say, I want a trackpad in there, and I also want the trackball as a module, so I can try it later.
Oh, look at that!
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, lots of options.
So many options.
And
Arabic keyboard, cool.
Yeah. So
you don't even have to have a Wi-Fi card in it. Another privacy feature again.
Yeah. So there's no hard wired Wi-Fi in there. Yeah. What was the original question? Yeah, about the trackball. Yeah, why by default? Yeah, so it's in all the ad material, right? Like, most of it features a trackball because it's attention grabbing, simply put. It's just a differentiator, like, because people are like, what's that? So and then you can still be like, no, don't worry, you can still have the trackpad, but we have your attention.
Nice.
So, and I really like the trackball. I have the trackball myself because it's for me more ergonomic, and like, it has a nicer haptic feeling for me personally. I just like it more than sliding around on a flat surface.
Cool, yeah. Also on the aesthetic front is a question of any chance for a version with a completely transparent case.
Yeah, good question. I think theoretically you could mill it from acrylic, I guess, right? So
yeah.
the bottom plate is also milled acrylic. So I guess it would be possible. I think it would be quite expensive. But you can try it. I mean, all the files are online, by the way. So not only our electronic source files, so we don't only have schematics, right? We have also the KiCad projects. And we have the design files of the case. We have the Fusion sources even for the case.
Wow.
In the GitHub and the GitLab. And there's, for example, some people who have 3D printed a different back of the case. And there's Jacqueline from Australia who completely had her own case made from metal. And I guess you could also do it from acrylic, right? If you find there's her fork, yeah.
Gay stuff.
So
cool. Oh, there we go. I think the
that's...
current keyboard is already pretty cool, but a cooler keyboard? Is it possible?
Yeah, so
wow.
That's this split keyboard, like a Lily something split keyboard.
I see. We have some positive feedback from the community. I went to a meetup at Noisebridge, my local hackerspace, where you were on a remote laptop talking to us from Germany, and Brendan was in the hackerspace. And there were a number of people who like showed up, and they were like, "Yeah, I've had my computer," and like everyone brought their Reform laptops, and it was a little party. It was awesome. There's
I would love to be there.
Oh yeah, someday. There's just already this really loyal group of people who are really into these, and before, so we're coming up on 45 minutes, and I know that like you just had a meeting, so you're already kind of fried. But I would love to ask you a bit about the process of making this as a hardware object. It's got these amazing features, but also like you mentioned in this article that you're not this one, in Interface Critique. You and Anna apparently first developed this in 3 months? You made a prototype in 3 months?
Yeah, that was pretty quick, yeah. But it was also very prototype-ish, right? Like it was really hacked together. And then we just went and made more and more versions and prototypes. So the first ones were, you see here, like it's from laser cut wood and 3D printed keycaps and stuff.
It's interesting, the little divots in the keycaps for.
Yeah. We wanted to have like this kind of shape that was, like had a little indentation, and
that's really interesting. Well, so sorry, go on.
Also, just a very quick excursion. So here's like a prototype version 1 Reform, and I don't know if you can maybe like this you can see it. So this has those keycaps printed from transparent like resin, and they are all individually printed. You see they're kind of like wobbly because impossible to get this right. So this was like kind of an intermediate version that also like 10 people have or so. So already a bit more advanced prototype. Yeah, it has a battery. It's a lithium iron phosphate battery, but in this pouch format.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they also exist. And it has like this kind of slimmer motherboard, and it has an IMX6 processor and a fan because it gets really hot. Yeah. Also, the current Reform does not have a fan. It's passively cooled.
Oh yeah, tell us about that. Is it? I remember Brendan mentioning this, but I forget what the deal is with that. Is it because the batteries don't get as hot?
No, it's because the CPU is kind of low power, power efficient. So it might be a bit slow, but it's power efficient and does not need to be cooled that much. And also means that we can get more runtime out of batteries that have a bit lower energy density. I mean, you have to see that when we started with this, there was almost no ARM laptop around. Yeah.
Right.
So, and now Apple did it and had like a huge breakthrough with power efficiency on the with the M1 and so on. But it was kind of already apparent for us that this would happen, and it has to happen to use ARM and to use RISC processor in a laptop. So now it's there's other and Chromebooks and stuff that have ARM, but in the beginning there was almost nothing. Yeah, if you have like an Intel processor, that was also the problem of the previous MacBook generation. They always got super hot, and you needed a lot of fans spinning all the time and so on.
Often for these interviews, I'm just trying to move the mic away from the computer so that it doesn't have such noise going.
So yeah, that's kind of one of those trade-offs.
If you were going to design something like this from the ground up again, what would you do differently?
Oh wow, nobody has ever asked me this question.
Really?
Yeah, I'm
one of my
kidding.
faves.
Yeah, cool. What would I do differently? So, okay, so I think we would have waited. It's really hard. I would say we were a bit under time pressure, yeah, because it's also not cheap to do this, and we had to release the thing, but we found out later that, for example, we could have made one more like beta version or something with a bigger group of people, because there was a problem that people's batteries would run empty if they left the thing lie around for a week or two or so, and then that's a problem that I would have really liked to have fixed before release, but otherwise, maybe it's always easier in hindsight, yeah.
Yeah.
I obviously made decisions that are that were kind of like impulsive, or like where I said like, okay, I want to ship this thing. Also, I don't want to always like redesign. So at some points I just said, okay, we're doing this now, even if this might be a compromise. And obviously, if I did it again, I would have made zero compromises, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
So maybe I would have made a more traditional keyboard layout. Maybe very probably would have spent more time on this battery thing, protection of batteries from under voltage. Yeah, I mean, I have to say that building the initial batch of production laptops was kind of a really big crunch. So it took long and was hard with a small team to make like these hundreds of laptops. And I would have, like, if I would do it again, I would try to outsource more manufacturing things. I think there's like, if you're a maker, you always have the instinct that, I can do this myself, yeah. So let's put the resin, like let's just resin print all thousands of keycaps here. Why not? We have a printer. What could possibly go wrong, right? And then later you're like fumes everywhere, and I don't know, everything is sticky from the resin, and there's this huge poison hazard, and you're like, this was not a good idea. Like, some things should be made in factories, maybe. or with a different technology. That's, for example, now we all the parts we make in-house. So right now there's like a Prusa printer working there making trackballs, cups. So we really like stuff like PLA, the classic 3D printing stuff. That's great. If I would do it again, I would not use SLA anymore, like resin, like in production.
Because of the
So
stickiness, or?
Yeah, and it's like toxic, and it can make you really, if you do a lot of it, it can, it's really a health hazard. And also after a while you can wear the machine down and you get like weird problems, and you need to spend time fixing it. And these things are not so common, like, and not so open like normal 3D printers, like additive, like FDM printers. Yeah. So I feel like the FDM ecosystem is much more open and more like common and easier to fix problems and so on.
Yeah. And plus, for FDM printers, there's a lot of options like recycled filament, recycled PLA, which can be composted in industrial situations, and then also, recycled PETG from water bottles and stuff. All these cool options that we're getting for filament.
Yeah, so right now the spool that's on this printer is like recycled PLA from Prusament. So we switched to that recently. So we're always making these little switches. And in the beginning, this trackball cup was printed, was SLA printed, and then we realized that if with a really good 3D FDM printer, we can get at least the same like reliable like quality of the print. Like that's really enough for the purpose. We don't need SLA.
I'm really amazed that you're doing trackballs on 3D with 3D printing at all. It seems like you'd have to do a lot of post processing.
The ball itself is not printed. So the ball is from a ball factory.
That makes more sense.
And the ball is from POM. Plastic that's very hard and like self-lubricating, and but the base, like the cup of the trackball, is PLA, and it has the magic of open hardware. Like very early when we released it, Chartreuse, a customer of Reform, made this mod of. Actually, it was also like the initial idea was from someone from G-Node. So they put these little 3 steel bearings in the cup, and then we had a nicer, smoother, more reliable operation of the trackball. And then we quickly adapted this. So in a very short time, we said like, okay, we will switch to this. So it went into the running batch production. We adopted ideas and designs from people who had just gotten the first units, made changes, and we like merged them in the ongoing production.
I love that. So these compromises that you're talking about making with the design and everything, the beauty of it being an open source product is that like not only can you continue to release stuff after the fact, but anyone can get involved and like release their own modules, their own updates, their own versions of CPUs for this, all kinds of stuff, and you can just fold it. Knock over my water. You can just fold it back into the main product, which is so cool. And we're really coming up on time here, but I'd love to ask you, just like, you've shipped not only all your crowd supply orders, but also post campaign orders. I think you've shipped some of those.
Most of those.
Cool. And if you were to give 1 or 2 tips to people who are going to run a campaign, like a crowdfunding campaign for hardware specifically, what are some things that you would tell them to make their lives easier? Or your future self?
My number one, 2 things. I would say 2 things. So number 1, keep it as simple as possible. Remove as many parts as you can. Every part, every cable will be a liability. This is really easy to underestimate. And also the packaging. every little detail will make you have to solve every little detail. Yeah, if you say, "Oh, I'll do it later," it will come back and haunt you, and you will lose sleep over it. So it's really like reduce, like to just increase. If problems they appear by themselves, you don't need to make them manufacture the problems. So yeah, leave out all the tricky stuff as much as possible. And then number 2 is pricing. That's very, very hard. And I don't think many people understand how it works. I'm not saying that I understand it, but it's if you are inexperienced like I was, it's really easy to underestimate the amount of work that goes into shipping something and assembling something. And this cost can very quickly accumulate. So like maybe your calculation has all this, yeah, okay, I need to buy these parts and the shipping stuff and the credit card fees and blah, blah, blah. And you have a little margin. And you might say like, yeah, okay, there's labor involved here to make this, but I will just, grind the hell out of this and I will be poor and so on. But actually, I would say don't do that. And really think hard probably about how long and how much work it will really take to build this stuff and ship this stuff in the end. You can really make your life very, very hard if you underestimate that. Speaking from experience.
Yeah, and you built a whole team around this, and I'd love to ask you about that some other time, but we really are up at time. And I know we'll just have to have you on again.
Yeah.
At some point, yes.
Sure.
Before we wrap up, I'd love to show everyone those links once again. A lot of these are in the description of the video, so you can just scroll down and click. We've got the MNT Research page, the MNT Reform on crowd supply, the laptop on your own shop as well, along with a bunch of other stuff. This is very customizable, as you saw. And then there's also there's extra stuff we didn't get to, like this update for the Amiga. What? So much cool stuff. Your own Twitter, which is linked below. We already looked at this stuff. There's the whole manual is online. There's a GitLab, and there's this really cool article that you wrote a few years ago when you had just created the first prototype, which is fascinating as well. Did we get everything?
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you everyone for watching. We'll hope to talk to you again sometime soonish. And yeah, have a great one.
Yeah, you too. Thanks everyone.
Hack on, everyone.